Yeah, that's right. I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Nick family. Welcome to the Just Nickin' It Weekly Show. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen, and I'm joined by resident panelist Jeff Clafter from the Happily Ever After Clafter daily sports blog. It's a little tongue twister for me. Ajay the villain. Jerrell won't be with us today. Um, as you guys have been doing for the past week, just give me a heads up on my audio and video if you can't hear me or it gets noisy. I may have to leave the show and then Jeff and Ajay have to hold it down until I get back. But the Knicks lost to Detroit last night, as we all know, 94-100 in game two of the quarterfinals NBA playoffs. And it was a tough, it was a tough loss. There's a lot to talk about. Tom Thibodeau, Brunson, Cat, the bench, the physicality of Detroit, the defense of defending Cade Cunningham. you know, the Knicks allowed 100 points. It's not a lot, but offensively, we just weren't able to get it going. So we'll start out like we usually do, generally what and who stood out, and then we're gonna get in depth on Brunson, Cat, Thibodeau, and rotations and things of that sort. But let's just start out general. We're gonna start with Ajay, because Jeff and I, hopefully you guys caught our morning show. So we'll start with Ajay. Who and or what stood out for you last night? Shout out to the chat, by the way. JJ, Keith Turner. JJ was in the building early, going back and forth with Jeff. I appreciate you. Keith Turner in the building on Deals NYK, man.
On
Listen.
Dios.
Yes, he's on all the content creator shows, holding it down. I appreciate you. Yes, Keith Turner, you are early today. All right, and I missed somebody. Was it David G? Yes, David G. Salute.
JJ always rocking with us, man. Shout out to JJ.
Mhm.
No doubt.
Yeah, and no calls. I'm on my iPad and and headphones, so I'm not wired for sound, so to speak. Yeah, I'll see if I
That
can.
little hamster's in the background running all over.
I know. But this would be the time to take calls. I would love that. Anyway, Ajay, floor is yours. Who and or what stood out for you?
Before that, shout out to JJ, because JJ, if you had the phone, if the phone lines were on, JJ would have called, and you'd hear that depressed voice in him. I heard him on NPK last night. He's like, oh, I'm like, JJ, bro, just chill, man. It's one game, man. Come on, it's all right. It's not the end of the world. Shout out to JJ, man. What stood out for me from the New York Knicks standpoint? Positive
Or negative?
or negative?
Or negative. Yeah, who or what stood out for you? Positive or negative?
There are a lot of negatives. Okay, and I'm gonna surprise you with this, right? So of course today, all day, I'm listening to the podcast and everybody's losing their mind and losing it over Jalen Brunson. And rightfully so. But you know what? Listen, it's almost like it's a double-edged sword with him, right? He kept us in the game, but he also kind of took us out of the game because nobody else was. I don't know, but the positive is you see, because remember Jalen Brunson was injured, right? He's coming back from an injury, so you see that he's back into form and he's back into playoff, what we like to call playoff Brunson, but of course he tried to do a little too much yesterday. Okay. But the one little positive is that he is being aggressive and he is going for it. Another positive is Mikal Bridges was also very aggressive on the offense, right? But that's about it. He was very aggressive, and I think he scored, I don't know, 19, 20 points or something like that.
19
in the first 19.
But again, another double-edged sword because he had reached 3 shots at winning in the last few minutes at winning the game, and he missed on every one of them. Okay, so that's a negative. But listen, it's like they say, it's a make or miss league, right? Sometimes you make him, sometimes you don't. Okay. A lot of people thought, getting Mikal Bridges here for all those draft picks was a mistake. Right now he is looking like that mistake. I'm not saying he is, and I'm not saying he won't turn it around, but at this moment, at this juncture, he's looking like a mistake, because of what they gave up for him. Again, this is the vibe out there, not necessarily what I think. We discussed this a million times on the show. I don't think the mistake was getting him. My thing with him is we could have got him for less, but we're not going to talk about that. That's like, we'll talk about that in the off season again. We'll rehash that one. And that's, I mean, the other positive is, believe it or not, as horrible as the officiating was, we managed to tie the game. As horrible as we played, like that entire game, we were horrible. Somehow, with a couple of minutes left, we managed to tie that game and actually had chances to win that game. To me, that's an extremely positive thing. It shows that this team never gives up. Like, this team always find a way to put itself in a position to win, to make it happen. Because the way we played yesterday and the way Detroit played yesterday, we had no business tied in the fourth quarter. I mean, that thing really should have been up, out of reach by that point. But we came back and tied it. And like I said, had the opportunity to go ahead or even win that game. That's a very positive thing.
Yeah, it was. I'm not going to follow up because a lot of what you talked about, I want to follow up in different segments, but I definitely agree with everything you said. Though some would argue that the officiating kind of caught up in the end and kind of helped us get back in the game. That's what Detroit would say. It kind of helped us get back.
How did it catch up? They shot 15 more free throws than we did. That didn't catch up.
You know what the curious thing about that is, Ed, is Detroit actually got called for more fouls than the Knicks did, 24-22, if you look at the box score, which is insane when you consider they shot 15 more free throws. And that's what makes it seem really imbalanced and sketchy to me.
Yeah.
Is that is rather bizarre, but
it's weird.
And that didn't help our cause any, but it's not the reason we lost the game either. So I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I don't know.
And that's another positive, Queen. They shot 15. We were right there. We were right there in the game. Like all of that, both teams shot, neither team shot well from the floor, so that was a wash on both parts. But another positive is that they were parading at the free throw line. In the first half, we shot 2 free throws. 2.
Yeah.
But somehow we managed to tie the game. That's a positive thing. So if I'm the coaching staff, I'm telling guys, we didn't bomb out there. We made a lot of mistakes, yes, but we also did a lot of good things somehow, because that shows you that the quality of the teams, that as bad as we played, obviously they played their hearts out there, but we were right there. So
yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, to me, that indicates mental toughness and something I questioned about this team. I thought it was inconsistent. So it was like, which team are we going to get? If we're up, can we hold the lead? If we're down, are we a type of team that can get back into a game? I wasn't so sure about it. It's been so inconsistent throughout the season. But I think the first 2 games and has shown that, they're not going to give up. They're going to scrape. They're going to try to get back in the game, even if they're not executing, well, or they're not shooting well, that they're not going to give up. That's good to know. Jeff, before we get into the nitty gritty, just kind of what stood out, or who stood out for you?
Well, I want to give a shout out to content creators like Sim and Tony, who do the post game right after the show. I don't know how they do that. Like I'm so, like, my emotionality is way too high to be performing any kind of analysis. I still needed you to kind of talk me down from the ledge this morning, and I'm starting to fog's starting to clear up a little bit. But you know, you're never too old to learn things, and I learned things there. I learned something with this last game. There's people who think that the glass is half full, and there are people who think that the glass is half empty, and then there are people like me who crush the glass in their hand and now have to go to the ER and get stitches because it's bleeding. So, you know, I don't want to duplicate the previous show. I don't want to go too much in depth. I think I expressed a lot of those things already, but I really want to 48 minutes from this team. I think the fourth quarters of these games show that when we're peak Knicks, Detroit doesn't belong on the same floor with us, but you can't play 8.5 minutes of good basketball and get a win in the playoffs. Well, we did it once, but it's not a formula to win a series. Let's put it that way. We stole one in game one. When you can argue we got one stolen back in game two, I really feel like down the stretch that was nip and tuck, and with how everything went, you know, it was right down to it. And you had that 3-pointer from Schroeder that hit the rim, hit the George Washington Bridge, doinked 3 times, and then went in. You know plays like that is just like, yeah, maybe it's not our night, right? But, you know, if this team is who we thought they were at the beginning of this season, I don't know if they are or not, but if they are, then they'll come out with a strong response in game 3.
Yeah, they will. I mean, let's get right into it. Let's start with Brunson, the head of the snake. I didn't listen. He had 37 points. You know, to Ajay's point, he stayed in there. He kept us. You know, he kept us in the game. You can even argue again to Ajay's point that there were some things that he did that made it difficult. You know, for the rest of the team. But looking at his play yesterday, and you can even say the first game, and even for the season, do you think one, he's a ball hog and just about his stats? Do you think that this is a learning curve for him to be a point guard on a championship contending or near championship contending team, depending on how you view the Knicks, where everything is magnified? Do you think this is just part of his natural maturation process, is just being able to manage a team in the playoffs? Or do you think that, and he'll get better over time? Or do you think that this is just Brunson? This is just who he is. He only knows how to play one way, which is to shoot you in the game. This is him. You know, this is him. What's your thoughts on his play yesterday? And just overall, where do you think he is? Just a bad game? You know, just give me your thoughts on Jalen Brunson, Jeff, Ajay, and then also the chat. Your thoughts on Jalen Brunson. We're gonna read those as well when we finish this segment, and Ajay is gonna remind us to read the chat before moving on to the next segment, because you know I'm going to forget.
Well, did you want me to start, or did you want Ajay to go first?
Either one.
You go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. You know, I really felt like in this last game, it was almost like Brunson was trying to pick a fight with the entire Detroit backcourt and the officials. And like, he was more concerned about winning that fist fight than he was about winning the game, right? You know, he came to life in stretches, but I feel like so much of what he did out there was forced. I saw on Twitter a clip from, it was early in the game. Brunson drove hard in on 2 players. Towns is standing wide open at the 3-point line. Nobody within a mile of him. And Brunson chucked up and missed a little floater. Now, to Brunson, in fairness to Brunson, I think Cat was behind him, so he might not have been in his line of sight. But in so many ways, I felt like that encapsulated the frustration that was, I guess we can call it the Knicks offense on Monday. It was offensive, but I don't know if we can call it offense. But, you know, I think sometimes it's muscle memory. And what I mean by that is he's so used to having to put on his cape come playoff time, because he has, you know, Julius was hurt and then in the year before, and he was really the only one that first year, especially in the Miami series, who stepped up and did anything. And so I think that it's kind of like, okay, this is the playoffs. This is the mode I need to get into. This is what I remember. This is how I have to be. And he's got to, and I think when you're that kind of an alpha, I think it can be difficult for you to just dial that back and say, okay, I'm going to be a facilitator now. Because even in his best seasons, he's not a huge assist guy. I mean, I know Ajay's take that assists are a bogus stat and all that stuff because people have to make shots. I get that.
Yeah.
But you know, he has more shot makers around him than he's ever had before. And he's not utilizing him, but I also think that the Knicks aren't doing a good job of spacing the floor. I think don't you guys feel like we're kind of on top of each other and we're not spread out to the point where we're maximizing our spacing? Because I think that's some of the clips that I've seen. I feel like that's one of the reasons why they're able to rotate against us so easily. And I think that's one of the reasons that we haven't been able to fully maximize this, is because people are not being crisp with their cuts and where they're supposed to be. They're kind of meandering in no man's land instead of being planted behind the arc. So you have the maximum amount of space. And I think that's hurt the Knicks. And I don't know why that's happening. Like at this point in the season, you should know your spots. You should know where you're supposed to be. And I don't know if that's because they had to go to different spots when Brunson was out of the lineup and now they're going back to something else. I'm not sure what the root cause of that is. Maybe you guys have some insight on that I haven't been able to tell just from watching it. But do you guys see the same thing?
Yeah, but I wonder if that's just because they don't know if we're running the offense or if they should just stack out the way to let Brunson do his thing. You know? Yeah. Yeah. That's you know, that's what I'm saying.
Well, because I think the question you ask is, you know, is Brunson, like, is he who he is at this point, and is he going to get better? I think he is who he is at this point, but he doesn't have to play the way he played yesterday. Okay, being who you are doesn't mean you have to, you know, when you go back to the numbers. I mean, and I said, Queen, and your part of your question was, do you think last night was just a bad game? Right? It's kind of tough to call it a bad game. It was a loss, but was it really a bad game for Brunson?
6 turnovers, 15 missed field goals. I'd call that a bad game just by the standard that he set.
He kept us in the game. I mean, you know, again, he shot us out of it, like but he also kept us in the game. So I don't know if there was listen, you expect Brunson, somebody with such high basketball IQ, you expect him to play better, right? But you expect him to play smarter. Okay, so he could have the next game he could score the same 7 points and be more efficient and more effective in involving his teammates. He could still score the same thing. I mean, we've seen him do that so many times. You know, he just has to be smarter about it. Okay, so yeah, we lost the game, so everybody's looking at it and say it's a bad game, and I don't disagree. It probably is, but you know, it's not the end of the world. This is guy. I don't expect to see that kind of game, you know, for the rest of the playoffs. Like, you know,
from who, Brunson or the team?
From the team, from everybody, or especially Brunson. Yeah, you know, for the rest of the playoff, however far we go, because you know we're. I was thinking about, I'm like, you know, we're playing dumb basketball. It's so dumb what we're doing on the court. It's it's crazy. And Queen, I was listening to the show this morning. I caught the tail end of it, and I'm like, oh my God, and I didn't get a chance to go back because I was like crazy tied up today. But I'm like, oh, I wish I was here to the beginning, because I know you went in on them. I don't even have to be here, because I know you call it as you see it usually. But we're just playing stupid basketball, like low IQ basketball, like through and through. And I'm talking about the plays, like certain things you see is like, what are we doing? We're more talented than that team at most positions, right? But we're doing, like, we have so many advantages on those guys, and we're not using any of them.
How much of it is the players? How much of it is the coach? I mean, we're going to have a segment on Tom Thibodeau, but I agree with you. We're not maximizing our offense at all. We're not maximizing our talent at all. And I'm not taking anything away from Detroit, though. Their physicality, but not just that, their ability to defend and rotate and to get to the open shooters and contest the shots, even when we put them in rotation,
Queen,
it's
that ability seems better when you don't move the ball. If you move the ball, all of a sudden that tight defense, that ability, it's pointless, right? If everybody's involved. If one or two guys are trying to score all the points, all of a sudden Detroit look like, oh, they're playing great defense. They're like the Knicks of the 90s. The Knicks, they look like a Tom Thibodeau. No, it's because only a couple of guys are trying to score the ball. That's why.
Yeah, that's true. And Brunson, I thought yesterday was one of his worst games. I don't care about the 37 points. I thought it was one of his worst games from a process perspective. I think he got too caught up in, trying to get players in foul trouble, trying to show that he can score despite the tough defense. I think, and I said this before the season started, I said Brunson has the most to prove that he can be the best player on a championship contending team, and that's not an easy thing to do. I think that and I've said this also, his process has to improve. And I get it. When you're a dominant scorer like he is, the balance is super delicate. I get it. But you gotta be unless we move him off ball, then that's a whole different story. But when you're on ball, when you're the point, you have different responsibilities in addition to scoring, additional responsibilities in addition to scoring. So you gotta be thinking like, the last 3 times down the court, we didn't get a good possession. Let's make sure we get a good possession this time. So-and-so hasn't touched the ball and I don't know how long. Let's get them, let's get them a look. Every time down the court, you got to be deciding, what do we need from this possession? What are they giving up? Where's our advantage on this possession? And that's your thought process, in my opinion, every time down the court. What do we need now? What do we need now? That's how I see it. And I just feel like Brunson comes down and he goes into mode. Now, there are times when I think he should. If we haven't scored, you're passing the ball, you're working your offense, you haven't scored after a couple of possessions in a row. That's his job to go and get us a bucket. In clutch, go get us a bucket. I get that. But in the third quarter, that third quarter, he looked like Allen Iverson. And I'm not talking about they have different skill sets. But I mean, you would see Allen Iverson just go and try to take the entire team every possession, and everybody else is just standing around. That's what I saw from Jalen Brunson yesterday, and it's not going to work. And to Ajay's point, that's easy to defend. You don't have to worry about nobody else. You could just swarm. Brunson. He has to be better. And I get it. I don't want him to turn into Halliburton. I don't want him to turn into Steve Nash. Him being a scoring point guard puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the opposing team. But to me, you use that to now open things up for your teammates. Now the defense is on their heels. Is he gonna take it? Is he gonna pass? Like you like a maestro out there after a while. So we may not see the best Brunson in that regard for another year or so, in my opinion. Um, you think about all of the best players in this league, they had to grow through the playoffs. And each time around, they got better and better and better. And I think that's going to be the same for Brunson. I don't know if we're going to get his best in terms of running a team for another year or so, but he could be better in game 3. He may not be optimal, but he could be better in game 3. Anything else on Brunson? Because I also want to get into Tom Thibodeau impact on Brunson, if any. Anything else on that aspect of Brunson? So I think the other question I have is, when he's playing like that, do you think that's the offense? Like, do you think Tom Thibodeau encourages this Brunson-centric offense? Now, I get it. He likes advantages. Once you create an advantage, two to the ball, now others are open, and you read, like he said, the defense will tell you what to do, you move it. So do you think that Tom Thibodeau is on board with Brunson just every time down, trying to create the advantage himself? Or do you think he just trusts Brunson and he doesn't feel, I don't know if the word is comfortable, but he trusts him enough not to like bring him over to the side and be like, look. We need to go in a different direction right now. We need to go to Cat. We need to run the offense. We got to do a better job moving the ball. What's your thought on how Brunson is playing, and what do you think Thibodeau wants?
I you know what, Queen? I think it's a little bit of both, and I'm going to tell you why, right? If you look at Thibodeau, like as a coach, he's kind of always done that. Like there's one guy on his team that he's fixated on, and he kind of always run the offense through that one guy, be it Derrick Rose, Julius Randle, or I mean, he's always done that at every stop. Okay. But so that's what he wants, and that's what Brunson is providing him. So it's a combination of, he also trusts Brunson, he also likes Brunson, so he lets Jalen Brunson do whatever he wants, right? I know that's probably his philosophy, right? Quote unquote philosophy. But at some point, when you're a talented coach and you understand the game, which I believe Tom Thibodeau does understand the game, he lives and breathes this thing, you have to be able to recognize when your philosophy is not the right one. Because one particular philosophy, first of all, even in the regular season, it doesn't work every team. We know that. We've seen that, because we don't win every game. Mm-hmm. Some games we win because of Thibodeau's philosophy, right? But you have a longer leash in the regular season because one game gets drowned out. It's 1 out of 82. It's a very small percentage of the regular season. Mm-hmm. But 1 out of 7 is a larger chunk of the games you have to win, or 1 out of 4 even. Okay, so it gets magnified at that point. You have to be able to recognize when your philosophy is not gonna get you that win, and that's when you have to shift to something else. Okay. And we're going to get to that. I know we're going to get to that. That's why I was saying we're playing dumb, low IQ basketball. Okay. Because again, at some point, maybe that philosophy, maybe what you're doing would have worked if we were playing Milwaukee Bucks. But after game 1, we lucked out on game 1. We didn't win game 1 because we played better. We won game 1 because, we had a good stretch. So after game 1, you should have realized this, and that philosophy doesn't work. You go back in the lab, you come up with different schemes on how to win game 2, right? Um, I think Detroit pretty much played the same way they played game one because they realized that that was a good way to win, that we got lucky at the end of game one. So it is like, oh, let's probably do the same thing. And I don't know if you notice the adjustment, right? The Detroit, they started playing the same way they played game one, but there's one problem that wasn't happening, right? Um, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., and not Tobias Harris, but Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley, they weren't so hot from the 3-point line anymore, right? So what does he do? Now he put Dennis Schroeder, like he give him more minutes and give him more responsibility, let him run it more. Okay. He tried that and it worked, and he stayed with it until he won the game that way. Okay. Did you see a whole lot of Malik Beasley? No, he wasn't doing much. So the coach was like, this is not your game, not today. This is not game one. You're not doing much out there. Even Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris was relegated to your only job right now is to check Karl-Anthony down. How is that even possible? I don't know. We'll get to that later. But, he wasn't. So he switched. He's like, listen, Cade, push this. Dennis Schroeder, you're the second guy. And then, so, and Jalen Duran, like he threw different things at us and we just didn't know how to respond. Okay. I'm sure Bickerstaff has his own philosophy, but he's recognized, listen, I might have to do something different. So let me do something different. And it worked for them. I don't know what's going to happen in game 3, but he had that flexibility to do that. It's not the same guys from game 1, the same guys who was hitting it. Those 3 guys scored 60-something points in the first game. Okay. In the second game, Dennis Schroeder's the one that killed us.
Right.
So the coach has to have that flexibility. And if Brunson's not doing what the coach is saying, you gotta sit him down and say, hey, you're not helping us right now. And direct him on what to do, how to play the game. And if he's not doing it, let him sit, a few extended minutes, because listen, what do you have to lose?
You can't do that though. Like
that's his philosophy. Yeah, I get it.
No, that's just NBA basketball. You don't sit your best player when they're going through a tough stretch. You may bring them to the side and you may talk to them, but if you're a coach, you have confidence that the next shot is going to be the shot that changes everything, or the next possession could be the possession that changes everything. You don't sit them down as almost like a punishment, like, oh, you're not playing well. Like you could do that in high school.
You sit him
you're
down.
Not doing that in the NBA.
You sit him down an extra couple of minutes just to go over stuff with him, or you could do it at halftime. At halftime, I'm sure they talk in there at halftime in the huddles and stuff like that. I mean, after a couple of talks, you got to realize this guy, he's got to do what you say. I mean, you're the coach, and Brunson's not going to challenge Tibbs like that, I don't think.
Yeah. I think the NBA is a little different in that it is about relationships, and it is about, if you and the best player is not on the same page, you lose your job. Like, so you got to be careful how you handle that player. So if what you're saying is bring Brunson to the side and talk about strategy with him, at halftime, take him out, talk to him, put him back. Like that's fine. But if you're talking about, this guy is just not playing well, I'm just gonna sit him down for extended minutes. You better have a really strong relationship with that player, and you better not do it too often, because if you lose the player, you lose your job. And that's just how it is in the NBA. Part of Budenhauser losing his job, yes, was the results, but part of it also was the connection he did not have with some of the players. They just weren't feeling him. So, but to your point, I do think that Brunson and Tibbs' relationship is strong enough that he could get away with, you're not playing well, I'm going to sit you for extended minutes. But with your best players, you always want to, send that message that you have confidence. you have confidence in them that they're gonna turn it around. So I don't know. That's just my take on sitting Brunson because he's not doing what you think
But
he can do.
Queen, that same strong bond, that same strong relationship should also make the guy listen to you. So my thing is, Tibbs is probably not telling him
Yes,
anything, because that same
I
relationship
agree.
should be able to be like, hey, Jalen, this, and that. This is what you got to do. Like,
Absolutely.
he's not going
Absolutely.
to challenge that, right? So he's not
Right.
going to not listen to the coach. So that means the coach is
Right.
not even telling him that. So
It's
I don't know.
possible. It's possible, or he's saying it and it just takes time. Think about Tatum and Jalen Brown. It's like, what is going on? Like, these two guys can't, play together. Even their teammates was complaining, like, they don't move the ball. They don't share the ball. It was a process for them. Perhaps this is, part of Jalen Brunson's process. And maybe Thibodeau is saying that to him and he's just not there. I'm not sure. Jeff, um, anything on that before we move to the chat?
I think y'all pretty well have that covered. The only thing I would say is that, you know, I don't think it would hurt to have played Cam Payne 4 or 5 minutes in that second half. He was very good in the fourth quarter the time before. And I think with Towns on the team, you have a luxury that we didn't have in last postseason, is that you can have an A1 scorer on the floor at all times. And we run lineups where both of those guys sit at the same time. And that doesn't make a world of sense.
That happened yesterday. That happened in the playoff
The
game.
first half, or at the end of the first quarter, one.
Oh yeah. Well, he had like, I think
Yeah.
OG was the only starter in the game with
Yeah.
four bench players.
Yeah, that shouldn't happen. But I think with Towns, and this kills two birds with one stone, because if Towns is out there without Brunson, he's by default going to be the focal point, the crux of the offense. You get Jalen more rest because you steal a few minutes, and Cam Payne has shown. I know he had a -5 with 3 turnovers, wasn't his best game, but he wasn't out there long enough nearly to make an impact. So, you give him a few more minutes, and then when it is Brunson time in the fourth quarter, then he's got more legs under him, and maybe that 3-pointer that he took does go. Maybe he doesn't miss that free throw. I don't know. Maybe he does. He kind of slips on those sometimes anyway. But the point being that I think in some ways I feel like it's an indictment that Tibbs is trusting his starters too much and not trusting his bench players enough. And that may be hindsight, and I get it. Most coaches are going to rely on that.
Most coaches do that, particularly in the playoffs. But I agree with you. The only thing about playing on Cam is Brunson is going to play more minutes in the playoffs. That's just to be expected. And so Cam's minutes are going to decrease in the playoffs. Now, the only way to get him more minutes is to play him with Brunson. But then the Knicks are super small against Detroit. But
Cam Payne
sometimes do it, and let's see, how it works for us. It's not automatic that because we're the smaller team, we're at the disadvantage.
That
the
was
smaller
the
team
went on the 21-0 run, wasn't it? I mean, so very small sample size. I'm not saying that's going to happen all the time, but at the same time, you can at least have confidence that they're not going to get blown off the court in those 4 minutes. I mean, and especially if you can replicate it was pretty much the starting lineup without Bridges, wasn't it? I mean, it was just Cam in for Bridges in that big time run. So you can find some time to play those two guys together and get Cam some more burn on the court.
Yeah, this is the thing with Cam. Cam is inconsistent. Cam is up and down. I don't think, you're going to have guys in the playoffs have good games. I just don't know if that means that their minutes should increase because they had a good, because they had a good game. Is Schroeder gonna, perhaps maybe they'll start Schroeder. Is it Schroeder or Schroeder? Maybe they'll, play him more minutes. I just feel like Cam is an inconsistent player. Like, I'm not getting on Thibodeau because Cam had a great game in game one that he didn't, I don't know, play him 15, 20 minutes in game two.
That's fair. All I'm saying is, and the other thing that I think it does, and really is, he's the only other point guard on the roster that I would really trust to put in the game. And I think if you can get Brunson some off-ball reps, that's going to help him too. Like on the time that any time that they saw on the court together, that you can let Brunson play off-ball, that gives him a chance to get open, maybe rest a little bit on offense, let somebody else. That Cam is a decent playmaker, and he's an aggressive shooter, which this team needs, to be honest. I mean, he's not always an efficient shooter. I agree with everything you said about his inconsistency and his inefficiency, but I still think that it may not be a bad idea to get him in there for 10 or 12 minutes in a playoff game.
And so basically, if I'm hearing you, excuse me, AJ, give him a chance to see if he can replicate, and if he can't, take him out, but just give him an opportunity to see. But that means that now you're taking out Bridges, who played well for us, if you're playing them together. Or maybe you're taking out OG, and OG was playing Cade. Like, who are you taking out the game to play Cam more minutes? But AJ, you were gonna say something.
I was pretty much gonna say give it a good look. Give Cam a good look. Who are you taking out? Or listen, in game one, Cam, I know he played a lot of minutes with Brunson with the 2-guard lineup, but he also played a good amount of minutes without Brunson. He was pretty effective both ways. Give it a look. Tibbs gave him 4 minutes.
But he was in for Bridges though. And Bridges was playing well for us yesterday. He had Bridges minutes in game one. So, like, all I'm saying is when we talking about playing guys more minutes, you also got to think about who you taking the minutes from.
You could from Brunson or Josh Hart. Well, not Josh Hart, because Josh Hart was, I don't know what Josh Hart. But Josh, the problem with
Josh Hart. Maybe Josh Hart.
Keep in mind, the starters played 196 of a possible 240 minutes. So I think you can comfortably probably shave a minute or two off of all of those starters totals and not, you know what I'm saying? And still have, like, you still have most of them on the floor most of the time. But, I think everybody except for Towns played over 40 minutes in game two. So
Towns and Bridges.
Yeah. Oh, Bridges didn't. Okay. I didn't
Bridges
that.
did.
Okay. But he's normally a 40-minute a game guy, so that's a little bit different too. But I'm just saying, so, if Hart plays 38 minutes instead of 42, is that, if that causes our entire rotation to fall apart, we've got bigger issues than,
This is the mismatched team, when you bring in McBride because you want to maximize spacing. Now you got to worry about rebounding. We were -14, -16, in rebounding. So, you make a decision to optimize this, and that becomes an issue. And I think probably in Thibodeau's mind, I still think you try it. But in his mind, he might be like, oh, we do need spacing. But then if we do spacing, we're going to be small. They're a tall team. They're a rebounding team. And so probably all of that thinking just stops him from making the move, as opposed to just making the move and let's see what happens. Let's see what the net is, AJ, you were going to say something?
No, I was going to say, I agree with you guys. Just, you got to try what worked until it doesn't work anymore. Again, goes back to my earlier statement. We're playing dumb, low IQ basketball. We know what works because it's worked pretty consistently all season. And I'm not saying Cam Payne. Cam Payne is streaky, right? You may put him for 8 minutes and he gives you like 20 points. Like, we've seen him, and you may put him for 20 minutes and he gives you 4 points, right? But you got to check it out. You got to try it.
Yeah.
4
No,
minutes is
I
just not
agree.
enough to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
it's
agree.
just, we're not putting like they're not putting the team in the best position to win. That's the problem. They're not. It's just not. There's so many options, so many things you could try to that would have been better for the team that they just not doing. And one of
In
those,
terms of rotations or in terms of
in terms of everything, rotation is one of them. The quote unquote plays. I don't know if Tibbs really call sets on offense. Because every time it's the same thing, no matter how much they fail at it, they keep going back to the same thing. But there are certain things we could do a lot better. And I don't know if we want to segue into Cat. Cat.
I want to do the chat. I want to do the chat first, and then we can
do the
segue into into
All right.
Cat. All right. Okay. I probably have to go all the way back. I can't star it on this end for whatever reason.
I got while you're looking back, I got a couple of them star. I'll
Okay.
start with those. Right.
Yeah, you can start with those. Yeah.
Shout out to Davey G. Says this team needs to start to play with a sense of urgency. Detroit looks like they wanted more. I don't disagree because they're playing so much harder with so much more energy, and yeah, they're very aggressive. And one could make the case that the fact that they're so aggressive is why they're getting away with all those calls. Okay, because we're playing a bit timid out there, so we're not getting the calls because we look like we're afraid of them. We flat out look like we're afraid of the contact, and we're not meeting them with the level of toughness they're playing. We're not meeting them with that same energy. And that puts us at a disadvantage, especially when the refs are looking at it like, oh, these guys, they just play tough. That's not a foul. They just play hard. We don't play hard. So when all the ticky-tack fouls, like, you're not playing hard. Why are you hitting them on the hip? And they call it. So.
Listen, I rewatched the first half today. I didn't get the sense that the Knicks weren't playing hard. They're not as physical a team as Detroit, and maybe Detroit's effort is popping off the screen, but I don't get the sense that the Knicks was just out there slumming and going through and going through the motions. They're not going to be Detroit. They're not Detroit. You have to be yourselves, and you still have to find a way to play your game and make shots. The Knicks got shots. They just missed them. We know they're a more physical team than the Knicks. So does that mean the Knicks can't win a game or win a series because they're not as physical as Detroit? I don't know.
That's usually how it goes. And we've seen a lot of playoffs, a lot of games where the more physical team get away with a lot more. Because or sometimes their reputation precedes them as being the physical team, and the refs just let them get away with stuff just because that's just how they play. And that goes for players too.
With that
goes for players. I
agree with that.
How many times are we watching the Golden State Warriors? Draymond Green, he doesn't set screens. He hold the player like he's playing football. He holding the player in place, and the refs just look away. Like they do it consistently. Bam Adebayo, every screen he said the movie screen. They don't call it because that's just how he plays.
No, I agree with that part.
So,
loose joint. We're not a soft team. We are not as tough as Detroit. With the players Tibbs have on the floor, Mitch is very tough. Precious is tough. OG is very tough. Hart is tough, but small. Okay.
Queen, I don't like Mitch's energy the last couple of games, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he's playing, but it's almost like I don't know.
I thought he was our best rebounder.
No, he's playing well. The energy looked like the passion for some reason. It's just not there. I don't know. There's a lot of time, like in years past, he would have put one more inch of effort that he's not doing this time. the kind of body language.
I don't know. I mean, he got us some, you know.
No, he did.
He was more maybe he was more energetic in game one, but I mean, in rewatching the game, he got us some really good second chance opportunities in the
No,
you
and
know,
and we
in
needed
that
him.
first quarter.
We needed him yesterday too, Queen. You know, I was texting you while I was watching the game. What did I tell you? I said I would have put Mitch in here right now. I would have go double big at this point. We didn't see a whole lot of that, but you know, at some point, I just wanted to take Josh Hart out and put Mitch.
Nostalgic Nick, the organization gave JB too much power. Okay. All right.
A couple of
Keith
other ones.
Turner.
Oops, sorry.
Okay. Game 3 is a must win, and I was gonna put Dennis got 20 points off the bench. That's not supposed to happen. Go ahead. You have some more?
No, Keith Turner, a doubleheader from Keith Turner says game 3 is a must win. And he said game 3 is super important because whoever wins game 3 was most likely win the series. I agree that game 3 is a must win and game 3 is super important. But the other part is that listen, don't listen to the media, man. Like whoever wins game 3 most likely win the game. That's not a stat. I don't know what.
No, I think it is.
No, it's historical. That has happened,
historical, right?
But that doesn't mean it's most likely to happen. Okay, it's happened a lot of times in the past, more often than not. That doesn't mean it's most likely to happen.
You only have to win
it's
2 more.
Descriptive,
so
not
it's easier,
prescriptive.
you know.
Yeah,
you only have to get 2 more wins.
Yeah.
So from a statistical standpoint, it's easier to get 2 wins than it is 3 with only a maximum of 5 games remaining or 4 games remaining. So you got to win 75% if you lose game 3, which is not easy for. Look, I don't think any team this year went 75% against the entire league. So to do it against another playoff team is a tall order. So I it is historical, but I think that there's some common sense context that makes that a reality at the same time.
Jeff, I disagree. It depends on who are the teams, right? This matters. What are the 2 teams you're talking about? Okay. I mean, if OKC goes in and lose the first 2 games against the Grizzlies, listen, are you confident OKC is going to come back and win? Could easily come back and win the next 4. I'm not saying the Knicks, Detroit is the same difference between the thing, but it matters what those 2 teams are. There's more to the equation than just it's happened before. It's more likely to happen. There's more to it than that. I think the Knicks are more talented than Detroit to the point where even if we lose game 3, we're still capable of winning the series.
We are capable, but it puts a lot of pressure on the Knicks to do it. Now, I'm not saying they can't do it. Yeah, they can. But
let's put it this way:
puts a lot of pressure.
If we lose,
you gotta win 3 out of what? 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4.
And we would be 2-5 against them at that point in the season. You think you're gonna just flip the switch and go from 2-5 to 3 out of 4?
I think we're more talented. We have more talent. If we play our game, yes, I think we could do that. It's not far-fetched, I don't think.
Okay. All right.
Wait, a couple of things before we switch. JJ said, I think we need another guy on the wing that can score and create on their own. I highlighted this because I wanted to comment that we actually do have that guy, or we thought we did. When we picked up Mikal Bridges, that's what we thought we were picking up. And also OG Anunoby is also that guy.
I'm still not sold on OG being a shot creator. I'm not sold on that. I think Mikal Bridges is, but I also think we have to, when guys don't perform, one of the other questions has to be, are we creating schemes to help them? Like, are we putting them in is the coaching staff putting them in the right position to be effective? So everybody wants to get on Bridges, but are we putting Bridges in, like he's playing but behind Cat and
Brunson.
Brunson, and we'll get into Cat, maybe not even behind Cat, who's not getting a lot of shots. Like he in line with Cat for shots. Um, then I think playing him with that second unit will give him an opportunity to play without a Brunson or without a Cat. And but we don't use him that way. So, you know, I'm not sure how much of it is some of it is Bridges true, but I don't think we're maximizing Bridges. I don't think we're putting him consistently in places in which he can be um most effective. And you could say that about this entire team, that consistently this offense is just not maximized. And I know some, shout out to Josh, aka Uncle Fulio, who believes that, there's some roster construction issues, and there may be, but
Absolutely.
but I just still feel like the coaching staff, Tom Thibodeau, have to find a way to get the most out of this team. And I just don't think we have. And going back to this Brunson segment that we in, I think Brunson just has too much freedom to do whatever he wants to do. And I don't know if that's Thibodeau, like, oh, that's my offense. This is what I want, or is it like I don't really like it, but I'm not going to say anything. Like I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is, but I don't like it. Mikal P says it's on Tibbs to direct the offense. Given that level of responsibility to Brunson in a tight game is malpractice. Is that because you don't think Brunson is there yet in his decision making? Well, what do you two think about that?
Well, the player's got to play the game. Like, coach can't make the passes for him. He's got to be able to read and react and play like the all NBA player that he is. Like I don't know. This is, it's not like Tibbs is like an orchestra director or a puppet master who's making everybody go and cut and do every possession. If Jalen Brunson has to be told, get Karl-Anthony Towns the ball, maybe his basketball IQ is not as high as we think it is, because that seems like it's a pretty obvious thing. And he's only averaged like 12 touches a game or some ridiculous, like from 12 passes a game or something like that from our other superstar. That if coach is okay with that, that's fine. But I think if you're the point guard, you're the leader of the team, you have to have the basketball savvy to say, hey, this is our biggest mismatch on the floor, regardless of who they have at the five, and make that happen. Like that's part of the responsibilities of a point guard, in my opinion.
And that's what we're questioning. I mean, that's basically what we're questioning. Right now. All right, we're gonna get into
Queen, wait, answer this
yeah.
one. Somebody
Go ahead.
has a question for you. On Dios was asking about the morning.
Yeah. I answered it in the chat. That we'll Jeff and I will be on 8:00 in the morning after weekday games, and if the post game falls on a weekend, we'll probably go around 10. If we if we can. All right, let's talk about Cat, right? I do want to get to Tom Thibodeau, but let's talk about. Well, actually, you could talk about Tibbs like within these segments as well. With listening to content creators, listening to fans, it's split, particularly yesterday's game. How much of Karl-Anthony Towns not getting enough shots and opportunities was Brunson hogging the ball? Was Thibodeau not demanding that Karl-Anthony Towns get some touches? But there was and I was really surprised. There was good segment of content creators and fans who felt that it was Karl-Anthony Towns' fault, that he was soft. We knew this, coming in. This is what he always does, in the playoffs. He disappears. I was kind of surprised because I saw it definitely as a issue with Tom Thibodeau and Brunson, and to a smaller extent, Cat not asking, calling for the ball. So I'm interested to see what the chat has to say about Karl-Anthony Towns not getting a shot in the fourth quarter. But Ajay, we'll start with you. What's your thoughts on that? Who would you? I don't know if blame is the right word, but who do you think could have had the most impact on him actually getting the ball?
The coach. Okay, so you have to run plays. You got to run plays for Cat, right? He doesn't bring up the ball. Okay, he rarely brings up the ball. Like, he may grab a rebound and try, get across the half court, but he does bring up the ball. So whoever brings up the ball, sometimes you got to call plays for him. Okay, there's a little bit of it that's his fault, because at some point you got to demand the ball. They cannot. I mean, oh my God, Queen. We go back to this dumb basketball thing that we're talking about, right? Yeah. How do you have Tobias Harris? Tobias Harris, he's not a defensive player of the year. I mean, we're talking about Tobias Harris here. How is that guy able to check Cat and keep Cat under 10 points? I mean, he wasn't the only one, but there's nobody on that team. Nobody on that team should be able to keep Karl-Anthony Towns to 10 points. Okay. He didn't shoot a lot. That's our fault. The coach have to call plays for him. This is the point where you got to sit Brunson down, say, listen, you have another all-star on your team. This guy shoots 43% from three. People like to use the word malpractice. I think it's actually criminal to not have Cat shoot take at least 17 shots, 15, 16, 17 shots a game. I mean, the guy is accurate. He calls himself the best shooting big man in the league, right? The best shooting big man in the league, right? And we're not feeding him the rock. What are we doing? We're playing. You can't win that way. Yeah, you may squeak out a win here or there, but you're not going to win a 7-game series when you do not take advantage of you do not use every advantage. Karl-Anthony Towns is an advantage. You have a mismatch. Every time somebody's on him, it's a mismatch. Every time. I don't care who's on him. The only time it's not a mismatch is if he's down low and you got Jalen Duren bodying him and pushing him and shoving him. That's a fair.
He can still shoot over the top.
He can still shoot over.
He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to body him and like Shaq, back him down underneath the rim.
I'm not saying it's a disadvantage. I'm saying that's a fair playing field, right? That's fair. That's a 50-50 matchup right there. But any other situation, Cat has the upper hand, and we don't go to him. It's just crazy that how we play. And it's insane.
Yeah, and for those who say, it's on Cat is not a point guard. Somebody has to get him the ball.
Yes.
Now, if we're getting him the ball and he's getting his touches and his shots and he's throwing it over the backboard and he's 2 for 8 and you're passing it to him and he's passing it back out and he's not taking shots, and you're like, okay, well, what's going on here? This guy's shying away from the moment. We're passing him the ball, he's passing it back out. Or this guy is shook. We're giving him the ball, he's turning around, throwing it over the backboard. But whenever we give Cat the ball, I feel like he gets a good shot. The little fadeaway onto 7th Avenue, that's a bit much, but he hit it, and I don't see him just he's been in the post. He's been in the post. Matter of fact, I would like him to take more 3-point shots. When he gets the ball against Harris, I'm seeing him in the post. So listen,
Queen.
The coach, like Latrell, shout out to Latrell. Spreewell is the American dream. Appreciate you, Spree, joining us. You got to correct that. If you're the coach, I feel like Tom Thibodeau, when it comes to this offense, he's like that little rotisserie oven back in the day, set it and forget it. Like that's Tom Thibodeau. He's like, look, I'm telling y'all in practice what we're supposed to do it. And once the game starts, it's all, to me, it seems like it's all on the players. Instead of saying, look, yo, no. Time out. When we go out, the next couple of plays, we're running through Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, I will say this, and then I'll pass it on to Jeff. Teams are not afraid of Cat. Teams are very content to put a small on Cat, and they are not double teaming either. Maybe they might double team here and there, but if he scores, so what? The Knicks are not going to go to him time and time again. The Knicks are not going to feast on that matchup. So a lot of times you see they'll put a small on and Cat will score, and they're fine with it because the Knicks are not coming back to it. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in game 3. That has to be
Queen.
a point of correction.
Real quick. I mean, there
Mhm.
was I don't remember. Maybe I missed it. I think I watched the entire game. I don't remember one instant to pick and pop between Cat and Brunson. Not one. I don't recall one in yesterday's
Well,
game.
well, first of all, Cat screens are like ghost screens. Like, to me, he's one of the worst screeners on the team. He doesn't touch anybody. So it's kind of hard to get a pick and pop with him when he's not even screening anyone. And the other thing is Brunson, he don't even bring it back to Cat. Like, if he does get a screen and Cat is able to catch an eighth of the player and Brunson comes off the screen, he doesn't look for Cat. Most times, not at all. Let me just That's why Minnesota fans were so frustrated with Cat a lot. He just didn't take over games when he has advantages, but you got to give him the ball and give him that opportunity, I believe. And maybe in Minnesota they did. I'm not seeing that with the Knicks. How can the coach run plays for Cat if he's sitting at the 3-point line with a hand in his? I've seen Cat in the post. Am I mistaken? I've seen him in the post. Jack.
Well, a couple things that come to mind, and the first one is that Cat ain't Pat, right? Like, he's a very talented, offensively gifted center. He can do a lot of things, but I don't think maximizing Karl-Anthony Towns is putting him on the block against a smaller player and saying go to work. I'm not saying he doesn't have advantages there. I'm just saying I'm not sure that's maximization of Towns' skill set. He's very much a finesse player, more so than he is a physical player, in my opinion. And he's one of the best finesse players we've ever seen. But I'm going to take you back to January 3rd for a minute. And it was that Oklahoma City game. And the Thunder unlocked something that night. They put Jalen Williams on him. And Jalen Williams only 6'7", and it bothered Towns, and he wasn't able to take advantage. And from that point forward, from January 3rd forward, our offensive rating went down a full 6 points with Towns on the floor, guarded by a smaller player. So there's something, either schematically, there's something that's in the water there. I haven't studied it close enough to tell you exactly what it is. But there's definitely something to playing Towns with a smaller player. And I think that it's because he's not, he's a 50, 40, 80 guy, but he's not a guy who wants to go down in the post and get you time after time after time. In fact, I would think that most of his paint touches and paint scoring is when he catches the ball at the top of the key and he's got a mismatch and he drives hard to the rim and he's able to get the advantage on a slower player and make a tough finesse finish, as opposed to just, and I'm not saying he doesn't have the moves. We've seen it when he fake get the arguing the ref with the foul. He made this smooth turnaround hook, so he has it in his bag. But I don't think that's his game. I don't think that's how he likes to operate.
Queen,
listen,
Trey,
we've seen, Trey. Yeah, I'm gonna let him in. I mean, yeah, I think I have to change when I let him in. I have to change the layout as well. Listen, I get what you're saying. I think the reason why things changed because I just don't think we've been aggressive and assertive in going to him against those small lineups. When we did it against Boston, he scored every time. Whether they put Jalen Brown on him, they put Drew Holiday on him. There was somebody else they put on him. He did it every time. Tobias Harris, whenever he does get a post up against Tobias Harris, he scores in the paint. I don't see him shying away from that contact. Contact. I don't see him getting the ball in the post against Tobias and then running out to the 3-point line for a 3-point shot. He's, so how much of it is Pat doesn't want to be in the post, and how much of it is when we see him in the post, we don't go to him. I just think that I feel like we don't go to him. I feel like his game is such wherever you put him, he can be effective driving, hitting the three, in the post. And we just don't maximize this guy enough, in my opinion. IJ, let me bring
I got it. There you go.
Oh, it automatically does it. Okay,
Hey,
what's up, Trey?
it's a party now. What's up, Trey?
Hey, in the great words of the great Sim, Knicks family was popping. What's going on?
cool. We good.
What's
All
popping?
right.
It's your boy.
All right, that's right. That's right. Hey, overheard you guys talking about Karl-Anthony Towns and that performance last night. I think he needs to be more demanding of the basketball. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's the second best player on the team, and when you're being non-existent for an entire half, I think at some point you got to be able to talk to your superstar teammate and say, hey, look, I know you are closer, but I've been getting these guys down low in the first half. Let's, go back to that and try to, get something that way.
No, continue.
No, that's kind of my
okay.
thoughts. That's my thoughts on
performance. Yeah, I agree with you. But do you think that's the major part? Like if you took Brunson, Tibbs, and Cat, how would you rank them in terms of responsibility for getting Cat the ball?
I would rank Brunson first because he's on the floor with Cat. And then I would rank Tibbs after that because, he's letting Brunson run the show. That's how a coach and a superstar are like. He's like coach is like the general that's not on the floor, that's watching his guys, do his thing. And so when he sees something that is not flowing right with the team, then he can kind of jump in at any moment and say, hey, Brunson, we need to go back to Cat a little bit more when they're running this defense, or in these moments, we need to go back to him because he's posting up what's his name down low. So I think it comes in that order. It's Brunson, then it's the coach.
Yeah. And then you would say Cat would be third in terms of demanding the ball, whether he's talking to Brunson and or whether he just goes down in the post, get the guy on his back and calls and
go to work. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what Sherwin is saying. Oh, I did not mean to put that up. Whoa. This stuff is going kind of fast. You think you're hitting something and but okay.
Hey,
this is what Sherwin
it speaks to a loud chat. That's all.
Yeah. If a center posts up, he will get the ball. So that's that's to Sherwin's Ford. And Keith Turner, I'm not even trying to hear that excuse. Cat needs more touches. Just take it. How do you take it? How do you get the ball out of Brunson's hand?
But isn't this the reason why we made the trade? Because we
Yes.
talk about Brunson having to do so much the past 2 postseasons. We've said it ad nauseum. Hey, he needs help. He doesn't have to be the guy every single night to drop 40. This is why we made the move to get him, and Bridges as well. I know we'll talk Bridges maybe at some point, but
yeah, we will.
Karl-Anthony Towns, this is why you brought the guy here, so that in the moments where the offense isn't, flowing the way it's supposed to, that you got a guy that can, have a good matchup against these bigs. It seems like we're watching the past 2 postseasons of this again.
Right. And where we had to play that way, right? Because we didn't have the talent, and now we do, and we're acting like we don't. Zigzag Zagala, or whatever. My apologies. In a post-game interview, Cat said he did what the coach asked, and Tibbs confirmed it because he also said Cat did what he wanted him to do. But what he wanted him to do in terms of what? Not ask for the ball?
Not shoot the ball?
Not shoot the ball?
Maybe more about just letting Brunson do his thing.
Man, we're not going to win like that.
Did you see everybody standing around trying to get out of Brunson's way to try to draw their man away from, Brunson?
I saw some of that. I saw some of it last night. The issue also is when the other team has a free throw disparity and you're not getting the calls when you're driving to the cup, that's when the crazy shots start going up, because in your mind, you've made up already, hey, they're not calling this on us, so I'm just going to jack up jump shots. I'm going to jack up threes. I saw some of that last night.
Yeah. Definitely. Another thing, and this is off topic, but I don't want to lose it. In the second quarter, I felt like the Knicks were rushing for no reason. What is going on here? You know what I mean? And Fred Katz commented from The Athletic. He said, listen, it's one thing to play fast. It's another thing to play rushed. And the Knicks were acting like the basketball was a hot potato. I'm like, yo, but calm down. Did anybody notice that in that? I think it was the second quarter. I'm like, what is going on here?
Particularly the bench. Cam Payne came into the game. I think he stumbled on himself a couple of times, lost control of his feet, lost control of the ball. Shaman had a bad turnover. And then I think once Tibbs saw that these guys wasn't getting into any positive flow, he didn't trust them at that point, which is why they got 4 and 5 minutes respectively off the bench. So I think.
What's your thoughts on that? Do you think he should have went back to them in the second half for a little bit?
Of course. Yeah. I'm the type of person that I'm going to let you play out of your funk. I'm going to let you get the clumsiness out. I'm going to let you, get yourself into gear. I'm not one of those where the first couple of plays, oh, you ain't got it, I'm just going to sit you the rest of the game. I disagree with that approach. So, yes, those guys should have got more burn.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would have went back to them just to see what you can get, and see if there's an opportunity for one of them to hit a few shots, get hot, give your team a lift like Cam Payne did in the first game.
And that, no, I was gonna say that he's inconsistent with that, because Josh Hart, he does all kind of crazy thing on the court, and his leash is like super long. I understand he likes Josh Hart, that's his philosophy, blah blah blah. But at this point, I think Tibbs trusts everybody on that team. Right, he tightened his rotation to the point where the only guys that are getting on the court are the guys that he likes or the guys that he trusts. Okay, give him the same leeway. Give him the same leeway. I mean, and Queen, I think the last show we talked about, Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges, they have at least 2 bonehead plays they'll do every game. We would joke and say, get him out, get him out early. That way, in the fourth quarter, when it matters, you don't do those crazy, stupid turnovers, right? Listen, Josh Hart does a lot of boneheaded plays out there, but he gets a lot of minutes. Take a couple of minutes off him, give it to somebody else. Let's see. Those guys can shoot, and we lost the game by 6. As bad as we played, like I said, we tied the game. Okay. All you needed was one of those guys to hit 1 or 2, 3 3-pointers, and we have a totally different conversation right now. So
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully in game 3, that's not the case. Do you think though Detroit's physicality had anything to do with Tom Thibodeau deciding not to go back with those guys, maybe because of size, but more specifically staying with Josh Hart for 40 minutes? Do you think it was the decision was based on size, or those guys messed up and I don't trust them, I'm not going back to them?
I think it was just that he didn't trust them. I think, like I said, it was those first few plays. Cam Payne, his feet was unsettled, and he was just erratic with the basketball. And he saw something, and he's like, "Oh, I don't need this right now. We're trying to, stay pace with these guys." So I don't think I had anything to do. And with all due respect to the Pistons, I thought they made some good adjustments. And by the way, Isaiah Stewart wasn't in the game last night. That should have been an advantage to us to not have him there. So I can't say it was more the physicality. I thought they handled it okay. But the Knicks also, at the beginning of these quarters, they come out sluggish. And I felt like last night, every single quarter they came out with no fire.
Do you think a change in the starting lineup is in order to kind of alter the dynamic a little bit? And what would be your change?
Yeah, I talked about this on my show earlier, and I said, I think you got to sit Josh Hart and just tell him, look, man, you got to go to the bench because we can't get out rebounded the way we did last night. And we need Mitch to start alongside Cat, Brunson, OG, Bridges. That's our starting 5. And you come off the bench with Deuce. You come off the bench with Shaman and Payne. And if we got to throw Precious in there somehow, some way, we'll do that. But that would be my first adjustment, is getting Mitch in the starting lineup. I mean, I don't want to hear any more excuses or, we're working him back from the injury into the rotation. No, at this point, it's the playoffs. This dude has got to get more minutes. 20 minutes, that's not enough for me, for Mitch, in my opinion.
I don't know if you have to start Mitch to get him more minutes. Like, I don't think you have. I think I'm not sending a signal that we're desperate. I'm not sending a signal that, we got to change our starting lineup. You could still get those same rotations. You can still get those same number of possessions without necessarily changing the starting lineup. Like you can extend Mitch minutes by himself without Cat. There's times in the game when we need more defense. You don't even have to play him with Cat. It's okay to sit Cat down, but you can also play them together. So I don't think you have to change the starting lineup to get what you guys are are talking about.
And I don't think it's a sign of desperation. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. And even if Hart comes off the bench, I don't see him getting. He's still gonna get his minutes because Thibodeau just values what he, what he brings. I don't see Josh Hart going down to like 25 minutes or 28 minutes. So how much of it is just cosmetic? Like if you feel like you need more size to start the game, or are we talking about more minutes from Mitch and bringing Hart's minutes down to like 25? I'm not sure that happened.
I would say
Because Mitch minutes have to come from somebody.
yeah, I got you. I think you gotta give him 30. Give Mitch 30 minutes, which means you're taking 10 minutes from somebody else. You could take 5 minutes off of Josh Hart and drop him down to 35 minutes. You could take
No,
5 minutes.
I agree. Yeah.
You could take 5 minutes between OG and Bridges. You know what I'm saying? Like you can balance that thing out to the point where nobody's, well over 40 minutes. And I don't think it's a sign of desperation. I think it's you making an adjustment. I mean, it's the playoffs, and playoffs are about adjusting to the matchups within a particular series. So if they start Mitch, I look at it as, they're trying to change some stuff up. It's an adjustment. Let's see how it works out against this Pistons team.
And you're okay with? Go ahead, Jeff.
But don't you think our problems, and especially in the first quarter of game one, were more at the offensive end than at the defensive end? We came out of the first quarter down 7, but that's because we scored 18 points. Inserting Mitchell Robinson for Josh Hart doesn't help that situation any. I don't think that increases our offensive output at all.
Because they've been the most consistent at slow starts throughout the season. And I've just made up in my mind that this is kind of who this team is. They come out, they come out a little bit sluggish. So I think in order to keep the game close, have some defense in there. And then as you kind of get yourself going in the second quarter into the half, then you'll be right where you want to be.
What about leaning into a more offensive lineup? What about leaning into what we do best? What about instead of bringing Mitchell Robinson in, we bring in McBride, who hasn't really been playing well, in my opinion, both offensively and defensively. But what if we took Josh Hart out and we just concede that we're not going to be a good rebounding team? But with our 5-out offense, where you have to account for everybody in spaces and space the floor, we're going to score enough that it's going to be a net positive. Because, that's been one of the criticisms of Tom Thibodeau as well, is that this is more of an offensive team than a defensive team. Instead of just leaning into that and playing full 5-out and creating mismatches for other teams, we're kind of halving it and trying to play good defense and then the offense suffers but just what are your thoughts if you had to choose between a double big lineup as an adjustment or a 5-out offense as an adjustment? And we'll go around. What do you think would be better for this team?
You make a good point.
And then Trey, then Jeff, and then Adric.
Queen, you make a good point. Bring Deuce in to start at the 2, and then put Bridges at the 3, OG at the 4, Cat at the 5. That would pose a threat to the opposing defense. So I could see that being a possibility. But it's like you said. It's either we're going to hit him with offense or we just going to hit him with defense. And, however we come out, to close the half, that's what it's just going to be. So I still say start Mitch, though. I still say kind of set a tone defensively, to start the game. And then your offense will develop as the game goes on. I would still
Mm-hmm.
stick with that. But I like the thinking in regard to having Deuce start instead of Hart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jeff, what's your preference?
This may be a cheat answer, but I would like to see the Knicks do both for certain stretches. I think that I actually think that would be ideal, is mix it up where Detroit can't get comfortable with so much of what the Knicks difficulty is our predictability or our ISO tendencies right now. We're not sharing the ball. So if you give a team a lot of different looks, well, we're going to play a defensive lineup for a few minutes, and do it this way. Then we're going to come out, we're going to spread the floor, and we're going to hit you with real 5 out, not just like with Hart in the game. It's more like 4.5 out. Right. We never truly embrace 5 out, and we never truly embrace the 2 big lineup. And I think we're making a mistake in both instances. Like, I think that those should be like, so we have the Jekyll and Hyde roster, right? Well, instead of leaning in, trying to create this hybrid Frankenstein that doesn't usually work, what if we just lean in to the strengths of certain lineups at certain times of the game and make it tough on them, and make it where they can't get used to, oh, well, they're definitely doing X, Y, and Z. Keep them on their toes, keep them guessing, make them react instead of just act. And I think that might be effective.
Because the thing about it is you're going to spread out their defense. You're going to spread out their defense. They have to guard every player. Now, they can cover a lot of space. They do cover a lot of space. But I do think you make it you make it more more difficult for them. And then if well, they probably wouldn't put but still, who are you putting Dorman on? He's going to be out of the key. You're going to put him on Cat, so he's at the top of the key. You putting him on OG. He's spread out in the corner, right? It really opens up the.
Deuce. If Deuce is in the game, you're not going to put him on a small. Deuce is going to go right by him. Like, it's not the same thing with Josh Hart, who's not a threat to shoot. So it changes that dynamic completely. But we never lean into either one of those lineups. And honestly, I think you and Trey hit it on the head. Those are our 2 strengths, and we're not doing either one. So one or the other would be good. Both would be even better.
Yeah. Ajay, your thoughts?
I'm sorry. I'm just reading the chat. What's the question?
Would you lean into a double big lineup to start the game? If you were to make a change, would you lean into starting Mitchell Robinson going a double big, or starting McBride, or if he feels like he needs a little more height, Shamet, and going 5 out?
I wouldn't mind starting double big. And at some point, even if you don't start the double big, I want to see more minutes with the double big. Don't have to necessarily start the game, but I called it out yesterday while I was watching the game. I texted, I said, Queen, like I would go double big right now. And I didn't even realize we were getting killed that badly on the rebound. Until at the end of the game, I'm like, oh my God, they just killed us on the boards. But at some point you feel like you need the 2 big guys, because not just for rebounds, but also for Mitchell Robinson's defensive presence back there. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
So
I would definitely. Wonder what the rebounding percentage was. Was there a big discrepancy in the rebounding percentage? I would have to check that. I think that is a better indicator.
What do you mean? In yesterday's game?
Yeah.
We got out rebounded. I don't know by how much.
No, I know. But the percentage of shots, like sometimes the field goal percentage makes a difference in terms of how many rebounds are available to get. But okay. All right. Let's spend a little time on Bridges before, and then I'll open it up to whatever you guys want to talk about. We're not going to be able to go down to each particular player, but let's spend some time on Bridges. Then I would like to talk about Thibodeau Hart, but we kind of talked about Hart, right? Kind of talked about Hart. Just thoughts on Bridges in this series. I know the fan base, or a good portion of the fan base, is down on him overall. I thought he was okay in game one. He didn't score a lot, but he didn't get a lot of opportunities either. And I thought he was good, in my opinion. I'm not talking about the last 5 minutes of the game. In that first half, and just defensively, he broke up like 2 or 3 fast breaks, on his own. But just thoughts on Bridges and what you want to see from him in game 3, and is there anything we can do differently to get more out of him? Ajay?
More out of
Bridges.
Bridges. Listen, he didn't have a terrible game yesterday. We did get a lot of them. In fact, Brunson, he was the only guy that Brunson was feeding the ball to. I want to say consistently, but more. Okay, Brunson give him the ball a lot yesterday. He really went to Bridges a lot. And listen, let me see. He didn't have a bad game at all. But of course, he didn't show up. Money time, he wasn't there. Or he missed the shots that the critical shots that would have pushed us ahead. But he was 8 for 18. I'm looking at the stat, and 3 for 11. He's got to do a better job at shooting the three, because he was only 3-11 from the 3-point shot. But listen, compared to game one, he was very aggressive. He scored 19 points, and he was getting the ball from Brunson. On defense, though, he's limited. Whenever they switch and he end up guarding Cade Cunningham, he's just overpowered every time. I mean, every time he gets run over by Cade. He gets bumped, he gets pushed out of the way, or he goes up right through Mikal Bridges. So he's just too small to guard him in terms of not lengthwise, but in terms of muscle mass, like his weight. But I would like to get more out of him, and more in terms of him being more efficient. But he was pretty aggressive yesterday. He shot the ball. He just wasn't super efficient. But you just look for him to be more efficient. And like I said at the beginning of the show, right now it's not looking good for him, even though he did have a decent game. But people will remember that he missed 4 critical shots yesterday. That could have put that could have given. That's what people was going to remember. They're not going to remember that he scored almost 20 points yesterday on 45% shooting from the floor.
Right. When an opposite, like, timely shots are needed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Timely shots are needed. The games aren't perfect. The games don't always flow or a certain way. We had an opportunity. You got to knock that down.
He had many opportunities.
Yeah. Jeff?
Yeah, the Bridges is very frustrating, but I think we need to get him more touches in the paint. I think due to the Pistons, what they're doing to us, I think he was 5 of 7 from inside the arc, and he's got a really good low post game. And if you can, and he makes tough shots down there too. Like it's hard to stop him when he catches the ball in there. I know it's not the most efficient shot diet in the world, but I mean, this team needs buckets. I mean, we just are struggling to create advantages. And to me, if you could kind of let him work in the low post area, work in the paint, especially, if he's got an advantageous matchup, I think that's a great idea to get some easy points. His 3-point shot's been busted most of the year, and it's not fixed. I don't know what he did to it, but it looked to me like he's not setting his feet properly. And a lot of times he's almost fading as he catches it. And so his momentum is going opposite the rim instead of toward the rim. And I think that's one of the reasons why, at least on the misses that he had in the fourth quarter, but those were 3 wide open triples that he missed. And you have to hit at least one of those. I'm not saying you got to hit all 3 of them, but you got to make at least one of those. I mean, and that's not asking a lot for a wide open 3 to shoot 33%. That's a terrible percentage on a wide open shot. So I really feel like we need more from Bridges, and it's really frustrating on defense because you can't really switch with Cade, because if Cade gets switched from OG onto Bridges, as Ajay rightly said, Bridges can't handle him. He's too strong for him, and he's allowed to just muscle him and forearm him into oblivion and then just get the and one. And so, but that's a larger existential problem for the Knicks, because we don't have another guy in the entire starting lineup, in my opinion, who can fill that need properly on a consistent basis, at least not to my mind. I don't, I don't think that I don't think Precious is quick enough to handle him, and I think that everybody else is too small or too weak. So it's really a difficult thing. So I think what you have to do is, we're gonna use OG as much as we can, slow him down as much as we can, expect that he's probably going to have a 30-point night, but make sure that you're not letting yourself get beat by anybody else. You got to shut down everybody else. That's one of your options, either that, or every time he touches the ball, you blitz him and you double team him and you force him to turn the ball over. But if you run that strategy, you're going to give up some easy looks, because he's tall and he's a good passer. And he's, the game 1, he had, I don't know, like 11 assists or something like that. He only had 3 in game 2, but he cooked. So, you're not going to be able to take away a team's best player entirely. So I think we only gave up 100 points. Like, I don't think our defense was the problem. You gave up 100 points and 28 of those were on free throws. So, which are unguarded. So not much you can do there. So really, you're talking about, we gave up 18 points a quarter or something like that on field goal attempts. I think you live with that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I don't think our defense was the reason we lost game 2. I think we lost game 2 because we couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. And, so we have to find ways to get shots for Bridges, to get Cat involved, and even if that means we sacrifice a little bit defensively, I think when we're at our best is when we're in the open court against them. I don't think they can guard our guys in the open court. But in order to do that, what do you have to do? You have to rebound. If you're pulling the ball through the net every time, it's tough to get out and run and do all those sorts of things. So it all fits together, but we need to get stops. And then when we get stops, we need to get out and run before they can really get their defense set. Because in game 1, when we made that run, it was because Josh Hart was getting out in front and they couldn't keep up with him. They didn't know how to stay in front of him. And then he was either making a dish or making a score. Brunson was in the act. Everybody was in it. Cam Payne did a really good job of pushing the pace. And I think that's actually a weakness of this Detroit's team. If you can attack them, because they want to speed you up and get easy points the other direction. But I think that sometimes it's like how how sometimes the best way to beat a pressing team is to press them. I think the best way to beat this team may be to outscore them.
Right. Trey, I just want to say this real quick. This is also showing we need to add another big wing on this roster, and Josh Hart needs to become. Yeah, like, I'm all for coming with Josh Hart coming off the bench, but in my opinion, it's like, for who? Like, who makes the the team better? I think if you bring in Mitch, you're gonna have the same spacing issues, but you're gonna get more second chance opportunities with Mitch, and that helps. I think if you bring in McBride, you're going to get more spacing with McBride, but you're not going to get that secondary playmaking you get with Josh Hart on the offensive end. You're not going to get transition buckets, with McBride. In my opinion, I think McBride is limited offensively. But in terms of stretching the defense, I think, was it Fred Katz who said he has the third best gravity on the team behind Brunson and Cat? So in terms of spacing, he does, but you're giving up, you're giving up size. So I'm in agreement. I would be fine with Josh Hart going to the bench if, in my opinion, there was an adequate replacement. I don't see Precious and McBride, in my opinion, and I get the on-off numbers. Um, it's not something I personally would want. I just think if we're gonna take Josh out the lineup, that guy's not even on this team right now. But Trey, just getting back to what we were talking about, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, with Mikal Bridges, and I'm trying to sit here and think about his time with Phoenix when he wasn't the go-to option. He played with a true point guard in Chris Paul, and that offense, if you remember, that offense was moving the ball around, and Bridges got better shots. He was more efficient, and his shooting was a lot better in that system. I don't think he fits with what the Knicks are doing right now. It's pretty much, the ball sticks to Brunson pretty much. When you watch this team on offense, this offense doesn't move the ball enough. The players in the starting five, they don't move around a lot to get the defense, guessing where the ball is going.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the problem with Bridges on this particular version of this team is that he's got to work extra hard to get his shots, and he makes the difficult shots, more difficult than they need to be. You talk about the two instances last night late in the game where, good looks, coming off of screens, but, not able to knock those down. But just generally speaking, when you watch him, he doesn't really, get, like, they don't call plays for him either. Like, they don't get him involved enough, in my opinion. And for a guy that you gave up 5 picks for, my co-host asked me one day, like right after we made the trade for him, he said, "Hey, Bridges should be your leading scorer. Like, if you can get that, then this team will be in a great position, come postseason time." And I had to think about it, and I was like, you know what? That would be awesome if Bridges led the team in scoring. But, I know the majority of the fan base looked at that and said, that's probably a bit unrealistic. But, you brought him in for defense, like, to be a wing that can stop, not necessarily stop players, but contain a Jason Tatum, a Jalen Brown, and some of the opposing wings that we would have to go up against. So I think they got a big decision to make, whenever the season ends, because he's due for either an extension or a new contract this offseason. I'm not sure which, but they're really going to have to sit down and really discuss, is this really the direction we want to go? And I guess that would depend on, what happens with Tibbs. How does this playoffs end for this team? Does it end so bad that changes are needed, or does it end in, we gave it our all, we took Boston to 7, just hypothetically, it just didn't work out, and now there'd be even with a more tougher decision to make in that regard.
Right. Yeah. Before we get the last question before we get out of here. Well, before we get to game 3, is there anything else you guys want to talk about that we didn't that we didn't touch on, and I guess we could talk about Tom Thibodeau and what we want to see from him, is when we talk about game 3, unless there's something about game 2 you want to talk about with Thibodeau. I know we already talked about the bench and giving guys more, another look, and talked about, his role in getting Cat more shots. I think what we didn't talk about is I understand Hart's role. I think I understand where Tibbs is going playing Hart. And I think he's striking that balance between spacing and the other things that Hart brings to the team. And that when those other things are working, yes, we're sacrificing spacing, but we get in transition points, we get in offensive rebounds. If he gets the ball, he's also a good playmaker and he can create open looks for teammates. And so maybe he's thinking, you know what, the spacing is not great, but we're getting these other things. However, there comes a time either where Josh Hart is not giving you those things and you're not getting the spacing, where I think you do need to make a lineup change. And I think there also comes a time when it doesn't even have anything to do with Josh Hart. We need the spacing. And that at that particular point in the game, and it just trumps what he's bringing. We need to make the change. So I get the trade-off. I just would like him to be a bit more precise in terms of, okay, it's time to go 5 out right now. It's time. Or it's time to go to the double bigs right now. It's time. Anything else on Thibodeau for game 2 before we move into game 3?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to game 3.
All right. Ajay, we'll start with you. What do you want to see from game 3 strategically from any particular player, from Tom Thibodeau, any angle? What are you looking for in game 3?
All right. First of all, in game 3, I want to see Brunson do a more conscious effort to get his teammates involved. There are other shooters on the team. Get these guys the ball, okay? And that's also on Tom Thibodeau. Okay, Thibodeau's he's got to control this. He's got to control the situation. You're the coach. You're the manager of the game. I understand you're not on the floor, but you're still calling the shots. When those guys go in the huddle, you gotta lay out a plan. Say, guys, this is what I need you to do. Yeah, they're not gonna stick to the plan because they don't know what the other team's doing in response to what you're planning, right? This is when the read and react part comes in. When they attack you a certain way or on defense, you got to make the adjustment. But you got to have a couple of contingency plans. Okay, if this is what happens, this is what you do. If this is what happens, this is what you do. Overall, you can't cover every angle, but you got to have a pretty good idea on how to run an offense. You got to lay it out for those guys. If they're not doing it, if they can't do it, then you don't have the right players. Then we don't have the right team. Okay. Again, if we getting killed on the boards, I really would like to see a little more Mitchell Robinson. I don't know what you're saving him for at this point. This is do or die situation right now. It's the playoffs. Every game's do or die in the playoffs, And as I mentioned earlier, it's not just malpractice to have Cat shoot the ball 10 times. It's actually criminal. It's basketball crime. It's a basketball crime to have this man who can shoot that well only take that little bit amount of time. By the way, he scored 10 points, but he was also a plus minus of -10. So he neutralized his own self. He really did nothing for us yesterday in that game. All right. He wasn't playing great defense. He only grabbed like maybe 6 rebounds. Oh, what's up, Jerrell? Why are you not on here, Jerrell? I want to see OG Anunoby go back to the OG Anunoby the last few games, of the regular season. I mean, aggressive, looking for his shot, looking to score. I know it's tough because you guarding Cade, so you can't really play that way on both ends. But at the same token, somebody's got to guard you too. So when somebody's guarding you, you're taking somebody's energy out. All right, so you got to be a little bit more aggressive because he's one of our better, more efficient scorers when he's on his game. All right, that's OG Anunoby. Mikal Bridges, I didn't have a problem the way he played yesterday. It's just that the money shot wasn't there for him. So, just keep being more aggressive. And Tom Thibodeau, listen, man, you got to give Cam Payne more than 4 minutes. Okay, I mean, this is a guy when he goes off. Oddly enough, with his awkward looking shot, when they start dropping, I mean, they drop like nonstop. You got to give Landry Shamet more than 4 minutes and 50 seconds. You got to give those guys a little bit more, because those guys, they can go off. They can't shoot the ball. They shoot better than Josh Hart. And I know earlier we talked about maybe he went to Josh Hart for size, but listen, Landry Shamet is probably the same height as Josh Hart. I mean, granted, Josh Hart's probably a little stronger instead of muscle mass, but Landry Shamet's the same height, if not taller than Josh Hart. Give him a few more minutes. Sometimes you need the scoring. Sometimes you need more scorers on the bench, on the court, than a guy who's just flying all over the place giving you rebounds. So you got to adjust to what the game's telling you to do. Tom Thibodeau, he likes to say the game tells you what to do, but he doesn't actually follow that. So he needs to follow his own advice and do what the game's calling for him to do. Okay. I do think we have more talented guys on our team than they do. And we should be able to win, the next couple of games. I'm not even going game 3. I'm saying the next couple of games. I don't care whether we're here or in Detroit. We've been a pretty good road team this season. So I don't think, I don't think playing in Detroit is going to be a problem. Oh, one last thing. Deuce McBride looks shook. Deuce, put on your big boy pants, man. This is not the first time you're in the playoffs. All right. We need you to come through and, be the dog that you've been, all throughout the season. That's all I want to see in game 3 right now.
Any concern, and you guys can piggyback off of this, about the Knicks being able to respond to what's probably going to be an emotional game from the Detroit fans? It's going to be, I would guess, a hostile environment. And the Knicks are going to have to kind of deal with all of that emotion and get off to a good start. Like, you can't be down 15 in the first quarter and have to expend so much energy getting back. Do you have any concerns about that, or you feel like the Knicks should be able to handle that?
I mean, we know they're gonna come out swinging, right? They're gonna come out punch us in the mouth, and so we just gotta find a way to sustain this and then and respond. So if after the first quarter, even first half, and they, you're tied up, or you only, the point difference is only a couple of points, then the Knicks have done their job. So it's just a matter of playing the game and show your superior talent to what they are. You should be able to win that game.
Okay. Trey, what do you want to see from the
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of what Ajay said earlier. Being able to move the ball around on offense, get guys, moving around. There was going back to game 2 for a minute, there was a play where Mitch got an offensive board and he tapped it back out to Brunson in the corner. Brunson hits the 3. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, that's the only, if I remember, that was the only 3 he hit of the ones he attempted last night. And the other ones that he did miss were a little more difficult shots to make. Run some plays for Brunson to where, and I'm not saying turn him into a catch and shoot guy, but I'm saying let the others set Brunson up for easier shots,
right?
And get that going. That'll definitely let that offense flow a little bit. So I would like to see more of that, where they have him maybe come off of a screen or something, and he gets a wide open 3-point shot, and he knocks that down. So I'd like to see something more of that. I want to see the bench contribute a lot more. in this game. That you
And have the
can't,
opportunity to.
right, the opportunity. You can't, like, if guys come off the bench and they sluggish, like, you can't be reactive and be emotional about how they're playing. Let them get their feet wet. Let them just play through it a good 10, 15 minutes and just kind of see what happens there. And then as far as OG and Bridges go, I think those guys got to get plays called for them also to kind of help them, to kind of help them get into an offensive flow as well. I said this a while back before Brunson came back into the lineup. All that scoring OG was doing, we kind of knew that was going to be diminished, at some point because of Brunson coming back and now happening to, reassert himself, within the team as far as how much he commits to defense, how much he commits to offense. And I think this team is good enough, they're talented enough to where they can run a great offense that they can get everybody involved. They got to get the ball moving side to side. They got to get players moving all over the place, confuse the defense some. It can't be, let's give it to Brunson and let him go to work. Like, the guys can't stand in the corners. It's got to be everybody moving with the ball. So that's what I'm looking forward to for Game 3.
Yeah, I agree. Any concerns about the Knicks getting off to a good start in a hostile environment?
Yes, there is a concern because I think you're at the stage where this team I think this is the first time the Knicks realize they're getting punched in the mouth. And I think the sense of urgency is going to be there for this team come Game 3. I think they're going to come out with a good start, not a great start, but I think they're going to come out with a good start, set the tempo, set that tone defensively. And I think everything else will fall into place after that.
Okay. Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, I think that the key to me, and I probably sound like a Tibbs acolyte for saying this, but I think rebounding is the thing that I want to focus on. I think we need to be tougher on the boards, and I think that's what makes it hard to, I guess if you're putting Robinson going with a double big lineup, it wouldn't be so bad. But Josh Hart's one of our best rebounders, but we didn't have a single guy in double-digit rebounds in Game 2. The Pistons had 3, so that shows me that they were out hustling us, that they wanted it more. I know we've got capable rebounders on the squad. We need more of that from Anunoby. I think Cade had a dozen rebounds the other day. So I think especially they beat us 12-7 on the offensive glass as far as offensive rebounds in Game 2. I think we need to limit their second touches because I think they're going to miss a lot of shots. But a lot of times we would play that initial defense. We would force them into a tough miss. All of a sudden they get the rebound and then they've got a layup. And it's like, well, you just wasted 20 seconds of really good defense and you didn't do you did because couldn't finish the possession. But I think that goes back to easier offense too, because I think when we get the rebound, especially when it is Josh Hart, he can attack and push the ball up the court, and we can see easier opportunities where the Detroit defense doesn't really have a chance to get set. I think with their size and their length, they can really bother you in the half court. And the more that we can do to play with tempo when it benefits us, like not be afraid to push the pace, but not let the pace dictate us, like not be wild and out of control like you were talking about in the second quarter yesterday, where it just felt like they were throwing the ball up and then running out from underneath it. You know what I mean? It was like, what is going on? So I guess controlled chaos would be the word, and really to just focus on taking care of the glass, getting Towns shots. Like, I want to see him at least 20 shots every game from now to the end of the series. And I don't care if he doesn't even shoot the ball well. I think you got a 50, 40, 80 guy. You give him the ball and you expect him to play up to those percentages. And I think he's shown when given the opportunities that he can make things happen in a big way for his team. But it's got to be a focus of this team. We've got to get Towns touches. We've got to get him involved in the pick and roll, whether it be he and Josh Hart or he and Jalen Brunson. We've got to get that tandem working. He's got to get the ball. He's got to make the defense work, make the defense move, and create opportunities for others. And he's capable of all of those things. But I think in game one, we saw Towns' most complete performance of the season, and that led to the 21-point win. I mean, 20.1-point run and the big 12-point win. But game two, we didn't see it on either end of the floor, really. So we need to make a concerted effort to get him going, make him feel valued, let him get in the rhythm of the game. And I think if he's the best player on the floor, the Knicks win hands down. If he's on the back of a milk carton again, then we're in trouble.
Yeah. I think for me, the number one concern is the Knicks being able to get off to a good start and being able to deal with the emotion of the fans, the emotions maybe even of the Detroit players playing at home, the hostile crowd. Like to be able to meet that emotion and play good solid basketball. I think if the Knicks go in and we're down 15 in the first quarter, I'm not saying they can't battle back. I'm just saying it just takes a lot of energy to do so. So that's my number one concern. Get off to a good start. Do not get impacted severely by the hostility or they may not even be hostile, just the emotionality of the Detroit crowd. That's number one. I'm super focused on Brunson and how he's running this offense. And whether it's Brunson, whether it's Tibbs, whether it's a combination, I'm looking at how is this offense being run? Are we getting people, players involved? And I need OG and well, Bridges was aggressive. So Bridges to continue to be aggressive and OG to also be aggressive offensively. And yeah, as far as Cat's concerned, he definitely needs to get more touches and but when he gets those touches, I need you to, I need him to go to work. I need him to go to work. Any last words? Shout out to Phil Porter. I appreciate you, Phil, dropping by. I miss you and the work that you guys did. But thank you for stopping by. Nostalgic Nick, Greg in the building. I appreciate you, Greg. Kevin Bergen, JJ, Serwin, Jamrock, Size 9, A-Train.
A-Train.
Herberto De La Hoz. I don't know. I hope I got that right. Kerry Cox in the building. I'm not going to get to everybody, but I do appreciate you all joining. And, we don't have to agree with each other, but we don't have to be disagreeable, right? And so it's just good to see the community we're developing here. Yes? Jerrell, too. Shout out to Jerrell.
Shout out to Jerrell. 87 people watching on YouTube. We only have 53 likes. So make sure you hit the like button before the end of the show or on your way out the show. Give us that little boost, that little bit of encouragement. It's easy. All you have to do is click that little thumbs up. That's it.
Yeah.
Make sure you're checking out Barbershop Sports with Trey. He does the Lord's work over there. They got a lot of really good content over there. So make sure you're checking him out. He's got a lot of good stuff over there. And we want to make sure that we're supporting all of the Knick content creators, whether it be Phil or Trey, two Knicks chicks, NBK Network, everybody out there. So this is a Knick family, and we want to make sure we're spreading that love to everybody in the AK family, as well as guys like Trey, who's always holding it down, and Phil. Just a lot of great content creators out there. So make sure we're supporting Ron. Still Knick fans is another one for sure. So
Yeah, appreciate that, Jeff.
Yeah, and you know, barbershop sports, they don't just cover the Knicks. I know you cover football. Do you cover other sports, or is it just basketball and football?
Basketball, football, we mix in a little bit of boxing, baseball every now and then, but you know, my podcast partner is strictly basketball and football. So as I guess most, you know, folks are these days, but yeah, we talk about it all. We even get into some messy stuff sometimes too, with the messy messy stories. But you know, for this moment, you know, we want to keep it keep it family.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you, Trey, for real. Just a really, really cool dude. I've just met some really nice people in this content creating community, and Trey is one of them. I appreciate you. Jeff, I appreciate you. Jeff was in the chat, like everybody else was in the chat, and I think called onto the show a few times. Am I correct, Jeff? And then he just came on, and whoop, I don't know how Ajay got here, but he's here. I don't know if did you start in the chat as well?
I just popped up. I woke up, I see myself on the screen. Hey, this dude, I know this guy.
I don't know. Did you start in the chat first as well?
Yeah.
You did. Okay.
I started in the chat, and then we communicated afterwards. And I did I call? Yeah, you know what? And I did a couple. I called in. I did a couple of shows like no video, and then you was like, you know, if you're gonna be part of the show, you're gonna have to be on video. You know that, right? So I was like, okay, no problem.
Yeah. I appreciate you. And then of course Jerrell, who I know from MBK, and I reached out to him. I was starting a channel, and he came on with me that first show and been holding me down ever since. I appreciate you. Unless it's something football related, then I'm on my own. But if it's not football related, he got me. I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody in the chat, the replay gang, and those who listen and are not in the chat. I appreciate you guys as well, and gals.
And wait, Queen, if you didn't yet, that show this morning with you and Jeff, man, tell people if we go, you know, the replay game and go check out that show. Those were the first emotions, you know, the morning after from Jeff and Queen. You got to get that.
Yeah,
I can check that.
Yeah,
out.
definitely.
Also,
and we'll be back Friday morning as well.
Also, I got to give you your flowers, Queen. Great job working with Dexter Henry of Sports.
That was awesome. That was
awesome. I checked out the episodes, and you're doing a great job out there. You becoming a superstar.
I don't know about that, but I definitely appreciate that, and just really learning a lot from other content creators as well. Just trying to level up, you know, a little bit. But thank you for that, and shout out to Dexter Henry, Clara Barton alum. You know, obviously I was probably decades before him. Right?
Oh, but, wow, that's where he went.
Inviting me. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate him inviting me on the show twice, actually. I appreciate it. All right, family. Until next time.
Sister, you're one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. DopeSoul.
Where you at? Where you at?
DopeSoul.
Where you at? Where you at?
DopeSoul.
What?